1, 2, 3.
Yes, it's the Late Late Breakfast Show with your host, Bernie J. Mitchell.
Are you in?
Are you in?
Hello and welcome to the latest Late Late Breakfast Show kitchen session with my favourite Trello course author, partner and co-working desk resident, Nils, who's a little under the weather today, but I've dragged him kicking and screaming into the kitchen to tell me about time boxing, because he's looking, in the week we've been sitting next to each other since he discovered time boxing from Doug, wasn't it?
Yes, roughly.
Yes. Roughly.
Some kind of mastermind session
Here at...
Yes, absolutely. Good morning, Bernie, by the way.
Good morning. You're looking very efficient and purposeful.
I am, actually.
So how's time boxing working? Actually, seriously, what did you change to...
What did I change? I just tweaked my existing system, really, but I was always quite organized and I was always really good at having a to-do list, but then it turned into this mountain of things that I needed to get done. And whenever I sat down to work, I didn't really know what to work on or what to choose, and lots of other things just slipped through the net. So I realized that I wasn't getting lots of important things done. And in general, without getting too philosophical, I'm always striving to do more of the things that are important to me, rather than the things that are just collecting in my to-do list.
Right.
So that was the trigger, really.
And how's it work? How's it working out, and how's it not working out?
It's mostly working out. It takes a bit of discipline, and then if you don't actually organize your work, then the whole thing just falls apart. So if that is kind of the important thing. But what I do in a nutshell is that I divide the whole week into time blocks. So every day really is divided into really clear zones of what project I'm going to be working on.
That was a reminder for me to record a podcast, so luckily it's on target.
I'm not sure you need my input. You're clearly very efficient already. You're well ahead of time.
It's all a grand illusion. I want to take my game to the next level there, Nils. So I'm going to go back to, you said how organising your work, because how do you organise your work? Because it's quite, like, I know to organise my week before it happens, so I happen to my week, not me happening to my...
Yes, that's kind of the...
Fluff that up, but how do you go about that
thing
for the viewers at home?
So during the week, lots of things will come up that need to be done, and I just stick them into Trello, and then I forget about them again until Friday afternoons, when I have my weekly look-ahead session. And I basically take everything that is accumulated in Trello and I assign it to different time boxes in the following week. And the time boxes are fairly broad. It just means that, say, on Monday mornings, I'm going to be working on product-related tasks. On Monday afternoons, I'm working on client projects. On Tuesdays, we've got our Trello thing. So these are not minute-by-minute time boxes. They're sort of half-day time boxes, pretty much.
Oh, because I asked you, because you've been looking around, you've been walking around 90 Main Yard with an air of ruthless efficiency, of like
tiredness.
Not tiredness at all. Like, I'm doing this now and I'm doing that later.
Yeah,
I've always been quite efficient.
I've always been quite good at that, actually, just to categorize things and just to zone out things that just don't fit in with what I'm doing. So and
is that why I ignore me so often?
Yes, it's official now. It's recorded. But because I manage these development projects, and there it's also really important not to be distracted by tasks that come in all the time, because you could just spend your whole life just chasing around. Answering emails, and so I was always quite good at that, but I never really planned my week. So I would collect all my tasks, but then I didn't really know what I should be doing on Monday mornings. So I just had that whole mountain to tuck into. So now, actually, because I've planned my week, I know that there are 5 or 6 things I want to get done this morning. And I just pick them up in Trello and use the filters and so on. So I'd only see those 5 tasks.
And you don't have to say yes, but is Trello the only organisation system you use?
Almost, pretty much actually. I've got it connected to calendars and things, but I don't actually use them, to be honest. And I put my meetings into Trello as well, so that they have a due date in Trello. I think that's probably a little bit unorthodox, but and my time box is actually on a piece of paper, so my time plan.
Shh, quick, cover the microphone. You can't have people.
Because I sat down one Sunday afternoon, and this is how it all started. I just wrote down all of the things I needed to do on a piece of paper because I was at home and I didn't want to open the computer, and then I just tried to allocate them to the next week, and that alone was a really interesting exercise, because I realized how many things I was trying to do and feeling probably a bit guilty about not doing when there wasn't any time for them during the week at all. So it was futile. It was impossible to get them done, really, ever.
Yeah.
By planning it, I became aware of it.
How has anything not worked, or is there anything you're struggling with?
The biggest thing is that Friday look-ahead session. If I don't do that for whatever reason, because I'm out of the office or I'm tired and I don't want to, then the week ahead isn't as organised as it could be.
Do you think about it all? If you miss that session, do you spend all weekend thinking about?
Yeah, a little bit. Yes.
Yeah.
This is the other thing that when you know. When you know that you're going to do something, say on a Wednesday morning, then you can relax about it because you know it'll get done. But if you don't have that time allocated to it, me anyway, I tend to worry about it and just carry it around in my head.
That's one of the things out of the like this little sprint thing that me and Emily are doing. That's something that's really started to work because I would spend more time planning in inverted commas and daydreaming, and now we have like a review and retrospective. And as it's taken like 4 months, but that's got much faster.
Yeah.
And so all my planning becomes procrastination for me.
Yeah.
I love planning, hence that big chart on the wall by my desk that I look at. What about when emergencies come up? Because you looked a little bit hairy on Friday afternoon, staring into a screen of code. How do you deal?
Yes, quite a lot of things came together.
How do you deal with that?
I have quite a good system, which is that when something pops up, I still put it into Trello, and I try very hard not to do things immediately because I'm usually on something else. So I don't really want things to distract me from whatever it is I'm doing.
You don't have emergencies.
I try not to have emergencies. And usually the emergencies are the people's emergencies and not my emergency.
Yeah.
So in terms of priorities, they shouldn't be as high on my agenda. But what I do, though, is that I schedule them. So when they come in, I make a snap decision, really, whether they could wait until next week, in which case I'll pick them up on the Friday afternoon in the normal planning session. And if not, if they need to be done this week, then I will schedule a time for them in my existing time blocks. And that's quite nice because then I can actually email the client or whoever it is, and I let them know that I'll do it on, I don't know, Thursday afternoon. And I know that it will actually get done because I know that I will have time for it because I've allocated the time.
What about email? Because I always get asked about, because I have this like little pedantic thing going on with email, but how do you organise email?
So I'm not as good as I could be, I think, with this, but I try not to read email.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something else, or I could be better at email, like I try not to read email. I think that's really admirable.
Yeah. It's hard, isn't it? I mean, that's one of the things that just pops up constantly, and then the phone buzzes, and it just really grabs your attention. What I try to handle it in the same way. So once I've read an email, I put it into Trello. It's a bit difficult to explain because I will have these email sessions. So I will just take, 10 minutes to go through all of my emails. And then I'll just go through them one by one and try not to read email the rest of the time, basically. So I'll close my email if I'm doing something else. And then when I feel, say after lunch, I might feel that there's sort of an urge to check whether anyone has emailed me.
Just in case a lottery wins come in, or
Yes.
you've inherited some money.
Or I've sold my MacBook on eBay. Sorry, just to, I didn't really say what I do with the emails. If I don't take any action on them, I will just leave them unread in the inbox. If I can answer them straight away, I will do that. If it needs some follow-up action, then I will actually put it into Trello and then use the same scheduling thing. So either it gets allocated a time slot in the week, or I just leave it there until next Friday's planning session.
What about clients? Do you make them use Trello, or do you make them use Slack, or do you just have to go with the email?
They use Trello. Yes. And some take to it better than others, but they all enjoy using it. But some will still email me. But then I just put them into Trello and usually just email them back and say, this is in Trello.
Oh, so explain how that works, because I've completely forgotten about that, and that's a really good idea.
So here's a key example maybe is that someone would email me an idea for future functionality. I should say I run a web development company, basically. So we develop these websites, and then the clients will email me with future functionality. And there could be a bit of a discussion in the email, maybe. It could turn into an email-based discussion with 3 or 4 people copied in on the same email. And that's not very efficient. So what I do is I usually copy their entire email and put it into Trello as a new card in what we call the wish list. So we have a sort of a feature wish list. And then I will just email them back and say, I've read this, I've put it into Trello for future discussion. And then we pick it up during weekly planning talks. We just go through those Trello cards.
Sorry, you can shut the microwave. We're in the kitchen here at 90 Main Yard, so everyone's suddenly tiptoeing around. With that, it's just popped into my mind as I got. Maybe I haven't told you this. As there always is, there's an app. There's a Chrome plugin that's called Email to Trello. I'll put the link in the show notes. And
I think you're a big fan of those. Yes.
Because Nils spends all his money. Spends all his time. Spends all his money in the casino. Nils spends all his time like doing client work, and I spend all my time surfing the Chrome store on the off chance that there's a new app in there. So how do people? I'd love that to work. From what I've heard you talk about it does. But that sounds a much better way of easing people into Trello rather than saying you have to use this, otherwise you're a bad client.
Yeah, you can't really force anyone, but after a while, people do get used to it, and I think they see the benefit, because email is just a really difficult medium for managing projects. And I think they can see the benefit of using Trello, and the way it's so specific that you have a specific card, one card about one feature, and then all the discussion about that feature is inside that card.
Yeah.
And that card then moves through the whole development life cycle, so you see exactly what's going on at any given point in time. And so there's real value in that, and the clients see that as well.
I started to say to people, if you can use Twitter, you can use Trello to communicate, because it is just like that. When you explain, you say, I have a project management tool that allows communication and a fluid collaboration. I'm like, what? And you say, it's like Twitter. Oh, okay. Yeah, no worries. Got it. Yeah. And you can put attachments to it.
It is really easy to use, isn't it? So that's.
So let's wrap up here, because we're nearly at 85 minutes. So how would you?
I can't be right.
It's not right. I'm making that up. Do you time track still?
Yeah.
What's
time track? No, I don't.
No. You did that for a bit and then you didn't. Is that right?
I did it for a bit, but I don't know. I actually think that it's worth spending time trying not to have to time track, if that makes sense.
So being intentional rather than obsessed.
Yes, because time tracking is good for billing, for example.
Yeah.
but I try to move towards contracts where I don't need to track my time for billing, so that I don't then need to time track. And I think if people measure your work by the minute, there's a kind of a value problem there, and a trust problem maybe. And so I try to move away from these kind of contracts. And I also like to use less tools. So if I also need a time tracking tool, that gets more complicated. And then finally, I was a big fan of Pomelo, which is a Pomodoro technique for Trello.
That's my favorite one at the minute.
Yeah. But what annoyed me about it was that it leaves comments inside the cards. So I liked the fact that I was tracking my time, but I didn't really want to share that information with everyone else on the project. And so I stopped using it.
Is that in case they got jealous or realised how long it took you to...
Yes, there is something there. So I work with lots of contractors. So we employ contractors. We use contractors, and the thing is that as long as they do their work, I'm happy. It doesn't really matter to me how many minutes they spend on each particular task. I actually don't want that level of control over someone. As long as they deliver the work that they're supposed to deliver. I'm happy, basically. So I try to have less control. I think it's Tim Ferriss who talks about it. Is sort of going off a bit on a tangent, but he has this example where he lets his staff make decisions as long as it doesn't cost the business more than $200, let's say. I'm probably getting this wrong now, but that was kind of the example. That he just took himself out of the decision making. Yes, I think it's before he started the 4-hour work week. He used to run some kind of bigger company, and then
the health food company. Or
yes. To take himself out of the equation, he started giving them more freedom and letting them make decisions as long as it didn't cost the business. So I'm kind of in favor of that. So with the whole time tracking thing, you start to get into a tricky situation where you really need to control and make sure that people are delivering the work, and you have to measure it and. So it's hard, I think. It comes with all sorts of baggage.
I really agree with that. And my other sort of, because I know someone's out there is going to be listening to this, thinking, has that ever blown up in your face or bitten you badly?
If anything, it works the other way around, I think. So we have contracts with clients where I might work half a day a week as a kind of a strategic input into technical development. And I deliver those contracts and everyone is very happy. But if we started counting every single minute, 1 week I might do a bit less than that, but the next week I might do much more.
Yeah.
And so the current arrangement works really well. There's mutual trust there, but if people started really counting the minutes, I think that would just sour the whole relationship.
So those days where you're going around 90 main yard in a skateboard and sunglasses.
Yes, straight from the beach.
They're the ones, or napping on your desk. They're the ones you wouldn't want to. I think I joke, but I think that I always respond way better to that type of. It takes me a long time to get my head around something, and then I can do stuff really quickly.
Yeah.
And when I've worked with people who are, I'm lucky. I've worked with very few people that are just horrible, but they're saying, how long does it take you to do this? And as soon as I have to start working out how long it will take me to do something, it takes me even longer to do it.
Yeah, nobody knows really how long it will take, do they? And I think it's more worthwhile to spend time optimizing your delivery process, so that it will take the least amount of time that it can, whatever that might be. That's more worthwhile spending time on that rather than trying to track the time that something takes. That's kind of my view that I've developed over the years. I also think something similar is software estimates. We could do a whole another podcast about that.
Whoa.
And I know, for example, Emily, who you work with, she really bitterly disagrees with me.
Hello, Emily. That's one I'm dying to. We'll have to do that in the next.
We'll save that one for something else. Yeah. But
that would be a really good discussion.
Kind of touches on time tracking as well. And anyway.
So talking of time tracking, we're 45 seconds away from the hour. So explain a little bit. I should have asked you about this. Explain a little bit about our weekly E-bomb Trello tips newsletter, because we haven't said anything about that in public yet.
This is true. Is it official? This is like an announcement. So
It is. Do you want to do a drum roll?
I suppose how it all started was that we talked to lots of people who use Trello, and we ended up giving them sort of ideas or sharing our workflow, and kind of giving them tips on how we think things can be improved, and that was always really well received. And so we're just going to do that to a bigger audience, I suppose, through an email list, and just do a weekly Trello tip.
Nils has made that sound very generous, but really it's for me is I can tell people to sign up to the email and stop talking to me. That's where it's coming from. But there's also, if you sign up to that, if you go to berniejmitchell.com and there's a big box on the front page there, it's not one of those pitchy emails where we're slowly siphoning you into after 27 emails you'll get a buy this, buy this, buy this.
Yeah.
It's, that actually has made something we've got from doing the course together is remarkably more efficient, because people in this space anyway and in work hubs come up and say, how do you do this in Trello and how are you working on this, and kind of feel that obligated to be walking the talk a little bit more than I was.
And you're right that it saves us a bit of time, because once we've explained something to 3 people, it is kind of easier than just to write it up as a blog post and then share it with the rest of the world. And we hope that it has some value to others as well.
And when you get the email, you can always, we encourage you to always email back a question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that saves us time too.
I think it goes to your inbox, doesn't it? And then you have to deal with it.
I'm gonna
But then we'll pick it up in the future. We'll pick it up in future podcasts and future Trello tips.
It is. Anyway,
we didn't speak about this week's Trello tip, but we've run out of time, I think, right? So
we need to get back to our desks because we're over our time box. So have a great week. Be careful out there and be excellent to each other. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Bernie. Bye.
Bye.
Please go to berniejmitchell.com/podcast. Bernie would love your feedback.